The Chinese government has taken several measures in its nationwide promotion of breastfeeding. It launched a National Breastfeed Awareness Day, and is making laws to officially ban the promotion of baby formula. Young children are not allowed to promote commercial products since September 2015. But the measures have no effect yet. Although 97% of mothers start to breastfeed in the hospital, 59% of moms from urban areas stop breastfeeding after leaving the hospital. Kahui et al. 2012, 238. A common reason for quitting breastfeeding seems to be that mothers think they have insufficient milk. Some mothers are afraid their milk is inadequate and that their child might starve. The milk scandals of the past decade have made Chinese parents reluctant to trust the safety of domestically produced milk powder. But with 20 million babies born in China every year, and only a quarter of them being breastfed, the demand for baby formula is enormous. It had led to empty shelves in Hong Kong, the Netherlands and Australia. China's milk crisis has become an international one. The most important underlying question to the issue is, why are breastfeeding rates so low in China? China's baby formula market is the largest in the world, and is still growing around 20% per year. The milk formula market benefits from the country's breastfeeding rates, which are some of the world's lowest. China's 2014 data from the National Health and Family Planning Commission shows that the rate of mothers that exclusively feed their child mother's milk until the age of 6 months is 30% in rural areas. China's 2014 data from the National Health and Family Planning Commission shows that the rate of mothers that exclusively feed their child mother's milk until the age of 6 months is 30% in rural areas, and only 16% in urban areas, well below the global average of about 40%. Over a third of China's newborns are given baby formula as their first feed. Breastfeeding traditionally was the norm in China. But it declined in the 1970s when baby formula producers started promoting their products in Chinese hospitals, causing a surge in the popularity and use of milk powder. Although multiple companies did so, the Swiss company Nestle became most known for these practices. Nestle encouraged Chinese women to use baby formula by giving out free samples in maternity wards across the country. New mothers started using the free milk powder for their babies. But by the time they ran out of product, they discovered they could no longer produce breast milk. It had dried up whilst using formula to feed their baby. Because many people could not afford the expensive Nestle products, they often watered them down. This sometimes led to babies' deaths. Gillespie and Heasy 2016, 466, Guo 2014, 5. Some mothers are afraid their milk is inadequate and that their child might starve. Supplementing their babies with formula is often seen as the best solution. Although the harmful baby formula marketing practices were internationally banned in 1994, Nestle reportedly still gave out free samples in Chinese hospitals in 1996. Some sources report that it is still common practice now. Ibid. The Chinese government, following the WHO guidelines, started to promote breastfeeding in the 1990s. But by then, the use of baby formula had already become normal in Chinese society. The popularity of milk powder was strengthened by different baby product marketing campaigns in the 1980s and 1990s. Trusted brands defined what parents needed for their child, and what was best for them. For many of Chinese parents, who treasured their only child, This also meant that baby formula was the best choice for their infant. By now, the use of baby formula has become deeply ingrained in Chinese culture. Over 1/3 of new mothers receive infant formula as a present when their baby is born. Supplementing their babies with formula is often seen as the best solution. Gulda 2005, 32. Formula makers such as Nestle and Wyeth have aggressive tactics to encourage medical staff to recommend their products, and to gain access to records of new births that could be used for marketing. This idea is also reinforced by doctors and nurses, who advise new mothers to switch to baby formula if they do not produce enough milk. They advise particular brands, such as Nestle or Wyeth, and tell mothers not to let their babies drink any other brands. As a special Reuters report from 2013 revealed, infant formula makers have aggressive tactics to encourage medical staff to recommend their products, and to gain access to records of new births that could be used for marketing. Reuters 2013. A 2014 online survey revealed that 34% of new mothers in China had received formula samples from their hospitals and / or maternal shops during pregnancy, which caused them to think of feeding their babies with milk powder. According to Women of China, there are also other factors that contribute to China's breastfeeding problem, such as the absence of a wide societal support system. This includes the short length of maternity leave in the private sector and the general lack of facilities to breastfeed. Due to China's consecutive milk scandals over the past decade, many Chinese parents no longer trust made-in-China milk powder. The trust crisis has not led to a rise in breastfeeding rates, but has put pressure on the international supply of milk powder instead. The Chinese milk crisis has become an international problem. Australian parents have difficulty in purchasing baby formula due to China's great demand, and stores in the Netherlands had to take special measures to keep Chinese buyers away. Many Chinese are so keen on buying particular brands of formula, they are willing to pay over 5 times the actual price. Nestle and other baby formula brands got what they aimed for in the 1970s. Many of Chinese consumers have become so loyal to their brand, that they now refuse the breast. By Maya Coetzee follow at what's on Weibo references, if not referenced, sources linked to Grihala, S&E Wickler. 2005 Governing China's Population, From Leninist to Illiberal Biopolitics. California, Stanford Up. Gulda, Gaiagia. 2000 Paradoxes of Plenty, China's Infant and Child Feeding Transition. In Feeding China's Little Emperors, Food, Children, and Social Change, Junjik, ed. 27-48, California. Stanford Up. Guo, Miguo, ed. 2014 Human Milk Biochemistry and Infant Formula Manufacturing Technology. Woodhead Publishing, Cambridge. Kahui, Christine, Liming Wang, Lihok Wang, Surya Fuller, Fang Wang and Mark Bulteries. 2 years ago, the British medical journal The Lancet published a study arguing that higher rates of exclusive breastfeeding could be even more effective than improved sanitation at preventing a large proportion of child deaths and disease in developing countries. It's unclear whether Chinese officials ever saw that research, but they seem to have arrived at the same conclusions. This week, Beijing announced that it was considering a ban on infant milk formula advertising in hopes of changing the country's dire nursing statistics. In 2014, fewer than 16% of urban Chinese women exclusively breastfed their babies through the World Health Organization's recommended period of 6 months. In rural China, the rates were higher, around 30%. But in both cases, they continue to decline. China deserves credit for acknowledging this problem, but it's unlikely an advertising ban will make much of a difference. China's breastfeeding problems trace back to cultural practices and economic trends that don't have an easy fix. Among the cultural factors, perhaps none is more influential than Tuoyuzi, the traditional 30-day postnatal confinement period, during which a new mother is expected to remain home to recover and rest while receiving assistance from family and, if she can afford it, hired help. The cultural expectations surrounding this practice tend to shift the burden of feeding away from the mother. In bygone days, families that could afford help would hire wet nurses to spare a resting new mother the labor of breastfeeding. These days, a can of formula suffices. In both cases, mothers lose an early opportunity to begin breastfeeding their newborn children, and rarely resume an exclusive breastfeeding regimen. Economic factors also play a role. Due to higher doctor and hospital fees associated with the procedure, Chinese women deliver via cesarean in roughly 50% of all births. Yet, according to studies, cesarean deliveries in China are strongly correlated to low breastfeeding rates, because they produce delays in the onset of lactation. There's also the simple fact that post-operative mothers are unlikely to start breastfeeding immediately. Moreover, it's not a coincidence that the growth of China's formula market since the 1980s has paralleled the breakneck development of China's economy. The hundreds of millions of migrant laborers who moved from China's agricultural regions to its manufacturing hubs on the eastern coast left behind tens of millions of children for grandparents, primarily, to raise for extended periods of time. For the youngest children of migrant laborers, formula was the preferred and often only food choice.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget for like, share and subscribe our channel to get more video updates, and see you on next videos.